Welcome. My name is Kenneth Washington, and the title of my dissertation topic is Failure to Plan or Planning to Fail, identifying organizational challenges that hinder local government's emergency preparedness plan during natural disasters. The management problem. Local government officials have a critical role to play in the challenges that hinders an emergency preparedness plan. Leadership within local government has shown an inability to work with various organizations, which include emergency management personnel, stakeholders, and community members to mitigate those challenges, which result in the collapse of a preparedness plan that is designed to help with disaster response, relief, and recovery efforts. Research question. My research question is, what organizational challenges from natural disasters affect local government, thereby leading to a more effective emergency preparedness plan? This study aims to identify those organizational challenges and help local government leadership make informed decisions on how to mitigate those challenges. This also leads to their emergency preparedness plan being more effective when a natural disaster occurs. Literature landscape. The literature review involves an in-depth analysis of different studies to identify common themes around the research topic. Some of the topics covered in the literature landscape includes emergency management, crisis communication, disaster law and policy, collaboration and leadership, and societal challenges. Theoretical framework. For this study, I chose the system theory of management as a theoretical lens and framework. The concepts of the systems theory was first conceived in the 1950s by biologist Ludwig van Bertalanffy. Think of system theory as a set of distinct parts that interact to form a complex whole. An example of this would be an organization, which is also a system with employees, assets, products, resources, and information that form a complex system in its environment. System theory was chosen for this problem because it allows for the ability of adaptability and change within the system. System theory creates a cycle that starts with the input, a transformational process, the output, and the feedback loop, which leads back into the input to start the cycle again. All of that happens within the environment. Conceptual model. In the conceptual framework, the environment is local government where the input is natural disasters and the standard operating procedures for the natural disasters are included. The transformational process would be the organizational challenges that local government must encounter, which leads into the output. The output would be an effective preparedness plan that allows for quick response, relief, and recovery actions with readily resources. The feedback loops requires community interaction and feedback, media coverage, assessments, and reports. The cycle starts over when another natural disaster happens. An effective preparedness plan is measured by or against the initial standard operating procedures that is designed for natural disasters. Methodology. The method for this dissertation is a systematic review design. The systematic review process begins with a database search based on the variables or concepts in the research question. There were 3 databases that were utilized for searching for studies for this dissertation. Prisma, along with the inclusion-exclusion criteria, were used to narrow down the search for the studies. Then, the weighted evidence with Tapupa's dimensions framework was used to appraise those studies. Finally, the Atlas TI coding software was used to code, analyze, and synthesize the data from those studies. Search strategy. The University of Maryland Library has an abundance of databases that are resourceful for research projects. The 3 databases within the UMGC library that I used were OneSearch, Scopus, and ABI Informed Collection. The search was based on some keywords which included crises, emergency management, local government, natural disasters, and organizational changes. This allowed me to have 6 search strings that I use in the OneSearch database, the Scopus database, and the ABI Informed database. Prisma. The preferred reporting items for systematic review and meta-analysis is known as the Prisma. The Prisma was used to find the final set of studies to be used for analysis and synthesis. The search strings that were used in the 3 databases gave me a lot of studies to choose from. The initial number of studies that were found between the 3 databases were 13,032 studies. Once I started using the inclusion-exclusion criteria, the quantity of studies began to decrease. Some of the inclusion variables included English-only studies and scholarly journals. Some of the exclusion variables were studies in nursing, health, and science. The exclusion criteria also included non-peer-reviewed studies, studies related to emergency management, studies not written in English, and a date modifier that excluded anything outside of the year 1990 unless specifically selected. This narrowed down the search from 13,032 studies to 4,482 studies to 874 studies. Then I only wanted studies with abstracts with keywords, which left me with 530 studies. From there, I got rid of all the other databases categories that was not business source complete or environmental complete, which left me with only 98 studies. Finally, I got rid of the duplicate articles or studies, and I had 55 studies left over for the quality appraisal process. Quality appraisal. The weight of evidence with Tapupa's dimensions were used for the quality appraisal process for all the studies used in this dissertation. There were a total of 55 studies that were available for the quality appraisal process. 45 of those studies met the appraisal standard, and 10 studies did not meet the standard. The passing score threshold for these studies was to attain a score greater than 14 points. This means that 81% of the studies reached that standard of a score greater than 14 points. 10 studies attained a score below the 14-point threshold. The other 45 studies obtained a score above the 14-point threshold. Preliminary findings. After the analysis and synthesis process was complete, there were a total of 5 analytical themes that emerged that are potential answers to the research question for this dissertation. Those themes were, number 1, communication and cooperation is the centerpiece for an effective emergency preparedness plan, whether it is before, during, or after a natural disaster occurs. Number 2, partnerships involve all parties to collectively engage and collaborate for an emergency response to be successful. Number 3, leadership must understand the risks and complexities that natural disasters can inflict upon human life. Number 4, creating policies requires community awareness, training, and assessments, which must be a priority in the planning process. And finally, number 5, funding is necessary for training, assessment, and all required resources needed in an emergency preparedness plan. Obviously, there is still a little bit of work to be done as far as recommendations, implications for practice, limitations of the study, and areas for future research. But those items will be coming soon. Again, my name is Kenneth Washington, and thank you for listening.